Hi guys, and welcome to another edition of the Kevin Moore Show. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Dan Farkash. Now Dan has a PhD in mathematics, computer sciences from the State University of Budapest. He has published over 25 books, all in Romania, in the fields of computer science, mathematics, essays, ufologies, and memoirs. He has published over 1,000 articles, mostly popular, and participated in many radio TV shows, most of them related to the UFO phenomena. Now his new book, Hyper-Civilizations, An Answer to ET Contacts on Earth, is out now, and he joins me to discuss this and more. Dan Farkash, welcome to the show.
Yes, and I am glad to be with you.
I'm glad to have you back on. I'll link in the description below, Dan, your previous interview that you did with us, which was UFOs over Romania. And now, today, you join me for the second interview, which is Hyper-Civilizations, which is a fascinating title. And I know you've got the book with you as well, your latest book. Dan, what made you write this new edition? Why are you writing this book again?
So it was Philip Mantle. After my first book, he asked me if I can write another one. I was more well prepared to write a book about a synthesis book about UFOs, more well prepared than for the first book, UFOs over Romania, because I was always interested in, first of all, in extraterrestrial civilizations, extraterrestrial life, and so on. And I can say I have an experience of at least 40 years in this, because I published in 1983 my first book about this in Romanian and in Romania. It was Why Are Silent the Extraterrestrial Civilizations? And I can say I had some answers, and I changed very little my position about this. Why are they silent? So, first of all, it's because we have actually two very different extraterrestrial hypotheses. And the people is not acknowledging this. So if you are speaking about extraterrestrials, everybody imagine something a bit more evolved than we are, maybe with several hundreds of years or 1,000 years, with the same kind of rockets or weapons or so. And this is not true. I have a good astronomy background, and I made and remade the calculations, and I read a lot of books about, and the most probable situation is that we are alone in the galaxy, or almost alone, or more exactly, we are alone in this level of evolution. If there are some other civilizations around. They are hundreds of millions of years older than we are. And this is the basic idea of the book, of my book. So the conditions for a civilizations like ours on Earth are very, very rare. So there are some authors saying that maybe we are alone in 100 galaxies around. Alone as ever. But the universe is so huge. The last figure is it has 2 trillion galaxies like ours. So that means even we are alone in 100 galaxies, there are billions of other places where civilizations like ours could arise. But to be absolutely clear, they started to be in the stage we are now. They are started maybe 1 billion years ago or more. And from one to the next, there were millions of years of, and after millions of years was the next civilization, and so on. So it's not possible to have a civilization like ours, or nearly like ours, in the neighborhood. But if a civilization, maybe several hundreds of millions years ago, was somewhere in the universe, they discovered in the meantime so many laws and technologies and possibilities. It's almost impossible. They did not visit our galaxy and discovered that our Earth is a very, very special place, a unique place maybe in all our galaxy. And it was kind of maybe a biologist going in a jungle and discovering a completely unknown anthill, a species of ants. And if he make this discovery, what he will do? He will immediately declare that that zone is a natural reserve. And he will make everything to that place be not disturbed. But he will make small experiments, maybe picking one ant, going with it in a laboratory, making some small, let's say, medical or biological or genetical experiments, maybe transforming the ant a bit and sending it back to the anthill to transmit information. But what will not do, he will not start a conversation with the ants. He will not start, this biologist, he will not start, for example, a treaty for data exchange, and so on. technology exchange. He will not propose to the ants technologies or science. So the difference between civilization, which is hundreds of millions of years ahead of us, and us, is exactly as between us and some ants. So this is the main answer why they are not speaking with us. So this is a theory, and I describe this theory quite well in the first chapters of my book. If you have a theory, normally you will ask if have you some proofs that your theory is working or not. And Arthur C. Clarke told that a sufficiently advanced technology cannot be distinguished from magic. This is classical. So the question is, do we see some magics around? And I answer, yes, we see a lot of magic, but we are culturally blind to accept this magic as true things. So I proposed five kind of magic, or if you want, of evidence. And first is UFOs. And I have a chapter about. Second, abductions. Third, traditions. What means traditions? Writings 3,000 or 4,000 years old, but also folkloric figures. I have, for example, in Romania, I gave a lot of examples. People meeting fairies. And I have a case with two witnesses filmed declaring that on a film that they saw a fairy descending from a UFO and going back to a UFO. So the things are linked together. And there are many, many other things in this tradition chapter. All the mythology, for example, and magic circles as those in crop circles. And they are all linked with that magic word, which is, let's say, the third kind of evidence. A fourth kind of evidence is maybe offending a bit for many people, is the religious one. In all religions, there are traditions, and it was written in books that some very strange people were coming from the skies, making some magic on earth and going back. And these are the gods. And we have hundreds of different religions, at least 150 religions with more than 1 million followers each. So it's a fourth kind of evidence. And fifth is more paranormal, a lot of paranormal things, starting with channeling, with remote viewing, and so, which can be explained also if we accept around us there is a kind of hypercivilization.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for what you've had to say there. I think you've answered quite a bit of stuff with your own theories, and I think your theories are absolutely fascinating. Just sticking with the hypercivilization as well. In your book, and again, your book is a great read, and I would recommend people get this book because it really breaks it down into simple sections, and it explains it then in a bit more detail than we will. But when you look at that type of civilization, and for example, intelligent robots, some say that we have been visited, but it's not by the actual original maybe seeders of this planet or the original interdimensional beings. It's by their sentiency, it's by their robots in a sense. Where does intelligence robots and sort of hyper civilizations fit into your equation?
It's not exactly as in the mainstream literature is about robots. It's a lot of, I say now what I have in my book. It's a lot about virtual reality because one of the ideas is that hyper-civilizations are fostering us as a future hyper-civilization. But they are waiting for us to evolve, to mature. And in the meantime, they record in a kind of hyper memory around us the lives of people. So exactly, we have that stuff even now. You can have an alter ego, an avatar in a virtual reality, which is a double of your body and maybe of your ideas and so. In a very evolved form of this, a hyper-civilization can copy all the life of a human and record it forever in that memory. And he will rest in that memory after his death. So, and even maybe, this is of course speculation, maybe with some parts of consciousness, some parts of willingness. So it is a kind of living after death. But to answer for another question, more precise question, I am absolutely sure, and not only me, because I told you, I made a synthesis work, and the ideas are from many books and articles. So I am quite sure that the people we met, maybe in abductions, the tall Nordics, the small Greys, and so, are not the people of hyper-civilizations. They are intermediate people. And why I am saying this? Some of them are very, very similar to humans. And if a hypercivilization was around us hundreds of millions of years ago, maybe, they could pick even a dinosaur and sending it maybe in another dimension, in another place very far, and having some dinosaurs evolving until now, and maybe they send them now back to the earth as reptilians from time to time. But they could maybe 40,000 years ago to pick some humans and in some remote reserves to evolve from those humans some new races of humans like we made with dogs. For example, in last 10,000 years, we have Saint Bernard and Chihuahua from the ancient wolf. So in the same manner, they could make different kind of humans. I make in the book a parallel between angels and tall Nordics. And it's not only me making this. It's not my idea. Many people say they are very similar. In the Bible is written that angels had wives from humans' daughters and had with them children. This is in the Bible if you read it. So it's impossible to have children if you are not of the same species. So that means angels were of the same species, or maybe they made genetic engineering. But it's quite possible, as I told you, I transform an ant and send it back to the anthill. It's kind of the similar situation. So, and we cannot, this is another quoting from the Bible, we cannot see the face of the Most High. It's impossible.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, that's one of my questions was, in a hyper civilization, whoever these hyper civilizations are that have maybe come to Earth, how would they look? I mean, it's you can't answer that, can we?
Here I gave credit to some stories. For example, that there is one that only spiritual beings can move so fast from one place to other, not material beings. The material beings, like we are locked to the material planet and so. And we cannot travel with more speed than the light speed, which is very slow if we are seeing all the universe. But maybe spiritual beings or something similar with spiritual beings can have more liberty to travel from one place to other.
So, are we maybe hypothesizing there that the hypercivilization is actually what we call the spiritual realm, in a sense? That the spiritual realm potentially, what is what you're saying here, could be the
Yes,
hypercivilization.
yes. I want to emphasize that, and I emphasize also in the book, this is what now, with our minds and with our culture, with our science, can propose as a solution. Maybe the reality is different, but for example, uh, it is another quote. Reality seems to be not only much stranger than we imagine, but even stranger than we could imagine. That was G.B.S. Haldane and Arthur Eddington. Both of them told this almost 100 years ago. So and I am completely confident that the reality is much stranger than we can imagine. But if we try to imagine something, yes, this is the spiritual world and other dimensions and so. So this could be mastered by a hyper civilization.
Wow, I mean, that is a different type of theory, and to think that, when we talk about people that have had out of body experiences, near death experiences, life within life, recall. How does all that fit into the work then?
Um, so here I have no finer answers, but what is absolutely true, and I personally had discussions with many people, doctors and patients, which had that out of body experience, maybe um, near death, in near death cases. Or even my wife had a out of body experience during a night, and it was no other problem with her. Um, and I know some other people having some out of body experiences. The problem is if you have such, and the remote viewers also, if you have some this kind of experience, maybe your eyes are closed. You see what is maybe in a remote place. How you see without your biological eyes, and even maybe without a clear consciousness sometimes. And the answer, and it's not is mainly the military remote viewers uh, who gave that kind of answer, is that we have 3 or 4 kind of minds. And I have a good friend, a very renamed doctor, military doctor. He's general also here in Romania. And his idea is that the brain is more kind of emitter and receiver. But our mind is not in our head, is more in another realm, and it remains after the death in that realm. I am not so radical. I agree that our conscious mind is in our head, our unconscious mind is in our head, and we are all linked with a collective unconsciousness, which some other people tell collective consciousness. So it depends. And if it is so, this collective consciousness knows in each moment everything, see everything. I have another friend who makes healing, and healing at the distance using that remote viewing technique. And he told, yes, it is not like myself going somewhere. If I thinking about a patient, the patient is near me, is like a copy in my mind, but in my face I see the liver or something which is necessary to be examined, and I can immediately see what is with it. So it's like that huge collective memory containing everything. It's like a copy of the real world. And also, it is not the copy of the present world, it's the copy of the past world. So everything was recorded on it, or maybe everything important. And therefore, I can make time travel also in this my memory. I can go in the past and see what was there, like in a virtual reality, without interfering with that past, like in some classical time travel stories. Also, some people say they made some travel in future. And that is much more interesting, because the first question is the future something which is really established, or we have free will and can change it, and so on. Once again, I have some cases myself, I examined them with apocalyptic images. So, people, let's say they were abducted, and they were shown some images with cities destroyed and in flames, and let them to understand that is the future of humanity. But we have also the apocalyptic writings in the Bible. So maybe 2000 years ago, it was the same warning. Pay attention, you are going to destroy Earth, and Earth is a very precious place, and pay attention. So it could be only a warning, and only one possibility of future, but not the real future. So this is about this kind of memory, and this yes, in the book.
Absolutely. And, one thing I just want to touch on there as well is that the whole idea of the virtual reality, because I know that in the book you even talk about that as well.
Yes, yes. I told you it is possible that continuing even us now with virtual reality, it is possible to uh, copy all life of somebody, to have it after his death, and to can conversate with that person and so on. This is possible even now. What it is not possible now is not possible to copy the consciousness. The consciousness is that copy have the awareness that he is there after life and he is talking with somebody and so on. But it is possible to have this in a virtual reality made by a hyper civilization. This is the
Absolutely.
idea in the book.
It's just so fascinating, Dan. It's just so fascinating. Thank you for sharing this.
Yes, I have in the end of the book, I have two chapters. I think they are also interesting. One is what are the limits of our understanding and knowing, and so, for example, if we can trust the witnesses, and what are the limits of the scientific approach. So this is one chapter. And the last chapter also is interesting because I told if that is real, because I told it's 99.999% true. But if it is true, if we accept it, what we have to do, and why are they not helping us to evolve? It's very simple. First of all, because if they give us technologies, we will immediately transform technologies in weapons, and we will destroy ourselves, because this is a very high probability that humanity will destroy itself in the next few hundred years. And this was the case with other civilizations. If a civilization survived and became a hyper civilization, that means it was very clever, very peaceful, and very loving of life and intelligence. So only this kind of civilizations survive, not aggressive, not conquering, and so. And so no technology exchange, no science exchange, and also not willing even to give us more than a hint they are here around us, because if they give us a precise proof that yes, we are here and we are hyper civilizations, all human structures will be destroyed. And they don't want that. They want this is the normal approach. They want we evolved and we solve our problems or aggressivity problems or uh, differences about my truth is the only ultimate and so. And if we will solve this, and it is not possible before some other hundreds of years, if we will solve it, yes, they will contact us more officially. This is also one final idea, and I underline two conditions to be contacted. One is to cherish the beauty of human spirit more than anything else, than any power and money and sex, and the human spirit to be the most important thing. This is one. And second, because if it is so, I cannot kill anymore anybody, because this is a human, yes. And the second is to admit that there are no ultimate truth, no religion truth, no nationalist truth, no racist, and so on. So to admit, not to abandon our truth, but it is a very difficult idea, but you will find it in the book, to develop another kind of thinking, the so-called pluralistic thinking. This is to change from or kind of thinking to an and kind of thinking. So admitting in the same time different theories, even they are contradicting each other, and going with both or with more or of them, even they are contradicting each other, but having all them and going ahead. And this kind of thinking is not a very easy one. This is the pluralistic thinking. And if we will have these two things, so to cherish the beauty of human spirit, and the other name for that is love. And the second, pluralistic thinking, to not contradict each other, but to accept different views in the same time. This is a precondition, but for all mankind. And, of course, to abandon aggressivity and conquering and wars and so. So this is the last idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dan, how can people find out more information about you? Do you have an English website as well?
Yes. I am actually chairman of a not very powerful association, but it is the only in Romania, only legally legal association for UFOs, and only for UFOs. And that name is ASFAN, so Association for Study of Phenomena, Air, Space, and the last N is for non-identified. So ASFAN, and if you have this, you have an English page also with some English information about us.
Excellent. Okay, well, we've been putting that
And
website.
the book is on the Amazon, and also on Amazon you can find the previous book, UFOs over Romania, so you can have a better image about Romania.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we've been putting your website on throughout this interview, and I think this was one of the more fascinating interviews I've done recently as well. This was a truly interesting interview just for me to be quiet and listen to what you had to say there about the hyper-civilization aspect. Even going into the spiritual side is absolutely fascinating.
Yes, and I'm underlying also, it's not only my ideas. I think my main merit was I made a synthesis, but the ideas are around, and there are many great people like Jacques Vallée and many other, G. Ellen Hynek, who underline ideas like this, that it's not the primitive extraterrestrial hypothesis the answer, but something more large. And spiritual and even religious things cannot be torn apart from this UFO and abduction problem.
Absolutely. Listen, I highly recommend people that are interested in this interview get to read your book because, again, you go into so much more detail in that book as well. And
Yes, of
but
course. We cannot in 1 hour.
No, no way, no way. I really hope you continue pushing this angle of your work, because this is such a fascinating part of the paradigm of where we're going right now with these two fields of the spiritual and the sort of UFO field coming together. So listen, I wish you all the best with this book, and I just thank you so much for coming on today.
Yes, thank you also for the interview, and for the second time, it was a great pleasure to be with you.